Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 2nd of May 2023, and these are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the latest as far as the Palestinian situation is concerned, with the death, rather the martyrdom of Khader Adnan, who was a member of the Palestinian group Islamic Jihad and was accused by Israel of terror charges. He had gone on a hunger strike. Nothing was done to alleviate his situation or to help him by the Israelis, and after this 87-day hunger strike, he of course passed away. This has caused a huge uproar as far as the Palestinians and the different Palestinian organizations are concerned, and the people are also concerned. There are huge congregations that are happening all across Palestine to condemn the Israeli attitude towards the Palestinians, because this is what Mr. Adnan had been standing for. These atrocities of the Israelis towards the Palestinians that have been going on unabated since quite some time. This is going to be our first segment. Our second segment today, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the relationship between Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the People's Republic of China. The recent visits that have been happening. We've had our army chief who was in China as well, and as a result, there has been a further consolidation of the relationship between both the countries. There was also a telephonic conversation between our Prime Minister and the Chinese Premier as well, in which different issues of mutual concern as far as the areas of bilateral cooperation were discussed. And now there are reports in the media that the Chinese Foreign Minister, after his meeting in Goa, will be arriving in Pakistan as well. There are also reports that the Afghan Foreign Minister, Mr. Mustafa, will also be coming to Islamabad for a trilateral meeting. How important is the arrival of the probable arrival of the Chinese Foreign Minister to Pakistan? How important is the trilateral meeting between Afghanistan, China and Pakistan, and a possible future for the Afghan and the Afghan Taliban in the context of all that is happening? This is going to be part of our second segment. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Dutch police that have said yesterday that officers were surprised when they arrested a man who had the identity of Boris Johnson on his driving license. In fact, he had the name of Boris Johnson, a fake driving license that called him with the name, issued in 2019 and valid until the end of the year 3000. This was a Ukrainian driver's license, whereas it has been confirmed that Mr. Boris Johnson was nowhere in the country when this arrest was made. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, a pioneer of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, has said that he is going to be quitting Google to speak freely about the dangers that the artificial intelligence poses, and this technology poses to the future of humankind, to the future of humanity. There are a lot of questions. On the one hand, we've got so many softwares like ChatGPT and others that help people currently in their daily work schedules or preparing reports, but the future could be extremely dangerous for humankind. This is what Mr. Hinton has saying, and this is why he has resigned from Google. This is going to be our final story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns Palestine, the situation that has been happening in Palestine since quite some time, and with this latest death and the martyrdom of Mr. Khader Adnan, who is a member of the Palestinian group Islamic Jihad, who was arrested by Israel on terror charges, and he had gone on a hunger strike, and on his 87th day of the hunger strike, he passed away. There's a lot of uproar within the Palestinians as far as the way Israel is moving around as far as the Palestinians are concerned, the way Israel has been treating Palestinians since the last few decades, the way Israel has been denying the Palestinians their basic human rights. To talk in detail about that, we've been joined by Dr. Qandil Abbas. He's an expert in international relations. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it's a very important story and development concerning Khader Adnan. Now, he has died in Palestinian custody after more than 80 days of hunger strike. There's a lot of solidarity being shown by the Palestinians through the different marches that are happening across Palestine, and all the different Palestinian factions that have also shown solidarity with Mr. Adnan. What kind of message does this go? What does kind of message is going to the Palestinian authorities, to the Israeli authorities, and to the world through this solidarity?
Thank you very much for having me. In fact, we know that Palestine is oldest agenda of United Nations, the agenda of Kashmir. Palestinians are fighting for their rights since 1948, and right from the beginning they are fighting for their rights. Khader Adnan is just a symbolic case, and he he actually died under the hunger strike. And we have several other cases which are not being reported by local and international media. So we know that this movement is going on during last 7 to 8 decades. And this case is actually conveying a message of Palestinian to international community that they must raise their voice for this noble cause. And all of the Palestinians are under severe pressures of Zionists, and they are dealing with very brutal operations. And I believe that Khader Adnan, it was not his first hunger strike. Rather, he remained under several other hunger strikes, and he is symbolic in this regard. But I believe that several other cases are base for international community to raise their voice against Zionist brutal
Let's
oppression.
talk about the cases, Dr. Qandil. As of April, 4,900 Palestinians have been held in Israeli jails in Israel and the occupied territory. More than 1,000 have been held without any charge whatsoever, including female and child prisoners. What kind of human rights, example is being given, and why is the West not doing anything about it?
Actually, human rights are for human being, and Zionist regime is not considering Palestinian as a human, because they put all the Palestinian into the cage, and that is the biggest in the world, because when they are dealing with the different Palestinian kids and women and with the old people, not like human beings, just like animals. And even animals are having their rights, but unfortunately, Zionist regime is dealing with them very brutally. And on international level, everybody is silent and nobody is raising his or her voice for Palestinian. But I believe that during 7 to 8 decades, when Palestinians are denied their life right, now they are forced to use their right of death, and they have started suicide bombing against Zionists, because they don't have any hope for their life. And this is decisive stage, and international community, especially international organization, and particularly United Nations, must intervene. We know that there are a lot of human right violation in different areas of Palestine, and if United Nations is not intervening in this regard, everybody will lose his or her interest on international community as well as United Nations.
Now, Dr. Kandil, I'd like to refer to what Mr. Adnan's wife Randa said, and I quote to what she said following the martyrdom of her husband. She said she and her family do not want any response such as a violence or rocket attacks in light of her husband's death. She said that her late husband used to say not a single drop of blood should be spilled. Now, after his death, she says, and all the sacrifices he has made, we do not want a drop of blood to be spilled. This is not a funeral home. She said, we will only accept those who want to congratulate us on the martyrdom of her husband. Do you feel that this very important statement by his wife is going to have an effect on the Palestinians, an effect on the way they should move forward, and an effect on the Israelis as well?
I believe, in fact, this is a message of peace for every peace lover. But that message of peace can be understood by only peace lovers, and Zionist regime is not peace lover, and they have lot of brutality in their history, and particularly when they are dealing with the Palestinians, they don't consider any kind of international law or human rights law, and particularly when they know that international forces are there and they are observing all these things, and despite all these observations, they don't have any pressure from international community, and even they are not being charged in Security Council of United Nations or any other international organization. That is why they are feeling that they have free hand to deal brutally with Palestinians.
All right. Now, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also issued a very strong statement. It has called for investigation of the circumstances and the details of this crime, and is also asks that as part of the heroic of what the heroic prisoners are being subjected to, there needs to be an investigation as far as the abuse, the kidnapping, the oppression, and the robbing of their rights and freedom is concerned. How important is the responsibility of organizations such as the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, under the current circumstances?
I have already mentioned that these organizations are not playing their proper role in Palestine or in Kashmir or in other areas of where Muslims are under pressure. Particularly, we know that Kashmiri people are also under severe pressure of BJP and their extremist elements, and same is happening in Palestine. And we know that on the other hand, we have organizations I2U2 where Israel and India are united with United States, and they are planning how they can rule the world. So, in these circumstances, nobody is ready to put Zionist regime under pressure. But I believe that it is a very strong message of Palestinian government and Palestinian people that they will not stop their freedom struggle, and they are still sacrificing their life for ultimate freedom.
But Dr. Saab, where is all of this going? When will all of this pause or stop? When will the international community realize, you've talked time and again during the show as well, about the negligence of the important international organizations, but when will they realize their duty, their responsibility towards important human rights abuses, such as what is happening in Palestine, such as what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir? Or do you think this is something that they want to let go of and let continue till such time that the last Palestinian or the last Kashmiri bleeds to death?
I believe, keeping in view 75 years history of Palestine, we should not expect any positive intervention by international organizations, even United Nations. But I believe that Palestinians are struggling for their freedom, and we know that during last 1 year, we have a change of five regimes in Israel. They are facing severe political and security instability inside Israel. And that is the result of Palestinians' struggle. They are not able to provide a peaceful environment for settlers, those who are coming from outside, and they are pushing outside Palestinian, and they are trying to settle uh, Zionist settlers in those areas. But on the other hand, we know that inside the Israel today, we don't have any type of political or security stability. So ultimately, we will have a result of very positive results for Palestinians. They will be able to push back Zionist regime, and they will be able to realize international organization that they are on the right path.
But Dr. Qandil, for them to go on the right path, as you said, to work or fight for their right, which is their just right, which is a right that has been enshrined under so many resolutions, isn't it also important for the Muslim world to reunite with them, to support them, to back them?
We know that Western countries, and particularly United States, is chanting a slogan of liberal democracy. The solution of Palestine issue is that if they want to resolve this issue through liberal democracy, no problem. They can start democratic process in Palestine and in Israel. Those who are originally from Palestine, they should participate in elections, and they should push back all the settlers, those who came from other countries to Palestine. And on these bases, I think they can establish government there, and we know that more than 80% population is Muslim, and this land belongs to Palestinian. But I believe that the other 20% Zionist Jews and Christians will have their rights in this environment. That will be the best solution for this problem.
Dr. Saab, Khader Adnan, his death, his martyrdom, do you feel it was initiated to some extent by the Israelis themselves by denying him the right medical care, as has been said by the Palestinian Prime Minister, Mr. Shataya, who has described the death of Adnan as a deliberate assassination? Do you feel it is also a message to other Palestinians who are incarcerated, who are in jail, that they should not go for any such attempt, such as a hunger strike, and that they have no right whatsoever? Where do these Palestinians stand, those who are incarcerated in jails, and of course their due rights, whether it be basic human rights or even the rights to get medical attention, as was denied in the case of Mr. Adnan?
Actually, there are two messages. One message is coming from Zionist regime, those who are trying to convey that those Palestinians who are in hunger strike in the Zionist prisons, their fate is death. They are trying to realize them that their fate will be death, and they will not care of their hunger strike. But on the other hand, another message is conveyed by Palestinian and Khader Adnan and lot of Khader Adnans, that they will continue their struggle for ultimate freedom. And I believe that if international community is not intervening, that will instigate action not only inside Palestine, but in the region and on the Muslim world level as well.
Dr. Saab, also I read a very detailed report on one of the major international media outlets that talk about Israeli incursions into Palestinian homes every night between midnight and 5 a.m. in the occupied West Bank and the East Jerusalem. And this is a continuous attempt by Israel to not only dehumanize the Palestinians, but also send them a very strong message. Is Israel above any kind of international law, above any human rights law?
I already told you that West Bank and Gaza are two biggest cage in the world, because Palestinians are present even in their homes, and those who are in the jails and their torture cells, they are facing very brutal treatment by Zionists. But I think that it is a lesson in human history that despite all these pressures, despite all these tortures, Palestinians are not ready to leave their homes, and they are still struggling for their ultimate freedom. And I believe that at this stage, it is moral responsibility of all the peace lovers to support the stance of Palestinians and to oppose and reject the brutal stance of Zionist regime.
But Dr. Qandil, when you say that all the peace lovers needs to support, the Palestinian cause, how, in your point of view, what should be the modalities to support this Palestinian cause? When you yourself have said during many a times during the course of this discussion that the West and the international organizations do not want to support the Palestinians, and how can the peace lovers support the Palestinians? What should be the course of action?
Actually, those who are not supporting Palestine and Palestinians, they are not peace lover. In fact, international organization, they cannot be considered as peace lover, because they are struggling for their own self-interest and their selfish interest. When they had their selfish interest, they sent their forces to Bosnia Herzegovina, and they sent their forces to Afghanistan. They sent their forces to Iraq, because they had their selfish interest, not only self-interest. But they know that in the case of Palestine, they don't have any economic or social or political interest, and they are diversely they are supporting Zionist regime. And I believe that we know that in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and a lot of other areas, they were not able to achieve their selfish interests. So when they are not intervening on humanitarian basis in Palestine, they will have lot of failures and defeats in the Middle East, and ultimately I believe that if they are not caring what is going on with Palestinians, so they will have severe consequences in this region.
Where does it leave the tactics of Itamar bin Gvir, of Netanyahu, of the far right ultra nationalist Israeli government? I'm also hearing many report about internal strikes within the Israeli government, people not happy with the judicial system within Israel, the Israelis who are not happy with it. Tactics such as the deliberate martyrdom of Mr. Adnan and other so many issues concerning the Palestinians. Do you feel this is also a deliberate attempt to hoodwink the people of Israel from the actual issues that concern them and divert their attention toward the Palestinians?
You are right. In fact, the Zionist system is looking on the verge of collapse because during last 2 months we observed that there were a lot of protests inside Israel, and they were not happy with and economic systems, and even their army is being collapsed and their police is not happy, their security system is collapsed. That is result of their brutal treatment with not only with the Palestinian, even with their own citizens, and that is ultimate result of their unjust behavior, and that will have very severe and very alarming consequences for all peace lovers as well as those who are trying to establish peace not only on the regional level but on the international level as well. And particularly, I think international community and international power must intervene in this regard. Otherwise, this will have severe consequences not only for this region but for the peace in the Middle East on the whole.
Dr. Qandil, there have been many strong responses from different Palestinian factions, whether it be the Fatah party on the occupied West Bank of Jenin, whether it be from the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Secretary General of the Executive Committee, whether it be from other important leaders, the Islamic Jihad as well, Hamas as well. They all stand united in their response to the martyrdom of Mr. Adnan. Do you feel there is some kind of a unity of all the different Palestinian factions in order to react or thwart the Israeli attempts to further incarcerate Palestinians or deny the Palestinians their basic human rights? Do you feel all of these factions might get together as one?
Yes, they have a very positive precedent of struggle against the Zionist regime in southern Lebanon when Hezbollah fought against Zionist forces, and they liberated their own several fighters from Israeli jail, and they liberated their land from southern Lebanon. So now Hezbollah as well as Hamas and other Palestinian organizations are united, and they are planning how they can achieve their objectives with very lesser sacrifice and very lesser problems, because they are caring that a lot of people are suffering by Zionist brutal treatment. But the planning of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other groups is based on directly to hit Zionist elements. But that will have some negative consequences for Palestinian as well. So I believe that this is a time to intervene not only by international community but also from Lebanon, Jordan, and other neighboring states, because Israel is surrounded by Muslim states and they can pressurize the Zionist regime to change its behavior against Palestinians.
All right, I'd also like to understand, Dr. Qandil Abbas, the role of international organizations such as the OIC, such as the Arab League, of countries such as Pakistan in this movement. I would rather call this a movement by the Palestinians for their due rights, their rights to decide what they want to do with their lands and to stop the Israelis from further, entering their houses, from further barring them from their lands where they have been living for decades. Do you feel countries such as Pakistan have been playing an important role? Do you feel that China could maybe play an important role like it did with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Iran? It brought them together. Could it somehow find a solution to the Palestinian issue?
It is very unfortunate that organizations like OIC have not been successful in dealing with the issues like Kashmir and Palestine because of lack of unity in the Muslim world and their dependence on Western countries and their weak economic systems. But on the other hand, I believe that on the state level, we have some failures, but on the societal level, we have a lot of successes because in different Muslim countries, particularly in Pakistan, we have heavy support for Palestinian and Kashmiri people. So this support is flagship for those people. And I believe that this general support is very important to keep these disputes alive in the international politics because international powers, those who are supporting Zionists and those who are supporting India, they were expecting that they will be able to deal with the Kashmir and Palestine issue within few years. But still, these issues are prevailing in international disputes, and now this is the time that international organization, Zionist regime, and India should provide some solution for these issues.
Solution
If
is the
they
key
are
word,
not
whether it
provided,
be through negotiations, whether it be through some kind of an alternate process. The Palestinians as well as the Kashmiris both need a just solution for their due rights that have been denied to them since many decades, and this is what is the need of the day. But seeing so many heartening examples like how Saudi Arabia and Iran have come back together and are now forging good ties thanks to the intervention of China, let's hope for a bright future for the Palestinians, a good future for the Palestinians as well. All we can say is hope and pray and wait for the next couple of days and weeks to bring in a ray of light as far as the Palestinians are concerned. Thank you so very much, Dr. Qandil Abbas, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the martyrdom of Mr. Adnan and all the repercussions that it has brought about in the form of protests across the Palestinians and all the different Palestinian factions also that stand united in their resolve as a result of this martyrdom and the denial of Palestinians to give them their due rights, which is enshrined in every single book, whether it be under the United Nations or any other. Let's come to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the China as well. I was talking about China and how it has brought the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Iran together. But China seems to be the bright light, that ray of light in this current time that can bring about a change as far as different issues are concerned worldwide, whether it be Saudi Arabia, Iran, whether it be, I hope, Ukraine and Russia, and who knows what the future might have in store if things go the way they are supposed to. Pakistan and China have had a very strong relationship. People call them iron brothers. People call them their relationships higher than the highest of mountains, deeper than the deepest of oceans. And China has time and again proven that through different actions, through backing Pakistan in the good and the bad times. Our army chief was in China some time back. A lot of important meetings were held then. Then there was the telephonic conversation between the Pakistani Premier and the new Chinese Premier, Mr. Li Qiang. And now we are hearing reports that the Chinese Foreign Minister will also be visiting Pakistan after Goa, where Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab will also be present to attend the SCO meeting. And after that, we might see both of them coming back to Islamabad. And there are also reports of the Afghan Foreign Minister, Mr. Muttaqi, who's been given permission to come to Islamabad for a trilateral summit between the three countries. To talk about that and much, much more, we've been joined by somebody who is no stranger as far as China and Pakistan-China relations are concerned. He is Mustafa Hyder Sayyid. He's the Executive Director of the Pakistan-China Institute. Mustafa, thank you very much to have joined us. I took a lot of time in kind of introducing all of what China has been doing, but it's very important, the whole context of what the region is going, what the world is going through, and how important a role China is playing in these current times. Just looking back and at the last couple of months, whether it be Iran, Saudi rapprochement, whether it be China also wanting to find a solution to the Ukraine-Russia crisis, or whether it be this solid backing of Pakistan at all different fora. How important has China been for Pakistan and for the region?
Omar Saab, firstly, it's a pleasure to be on your show as always. And firstly, let's zoom out and talk about the region. Why China is considered such a reliable partner by Iran or Saudi Arabia or even Afghanistan for that matter is because it doesn't have any excess baggage. It is a power which has emerged through soft power, not through hard power, not through regime change and interventions. So it is seen as a player which is above board, and it is seen as a player which can be trusted because it has not followed a policy of intervening or interfering in any state's internal affairs. So this is a very important aspect. So that is why we see that it is being engaged and its services are being solicited rather than it volunteering its services. There's a very fine distinction. Rather than it volunteering its services as other powers have, and volunteering is a soft word that I'm using, this country is asked and sought after to engage and do rapprochement. And when it comes to Pakistan, Omar Saab, we've discussed this many times, and you see that when you talk about ray of hope, the actual manifestation of ray of hope actually comes in the form of China for us, literally and metaphorically. True. Because indeed, the fact of the matter is that whether it's economic backing, whether it's political or strategic, or whether it is our territorial integrity, just now you were talking about Kashmir and also Palestine. China's had a very moral and principled stance, not only on Kashmir in fact, but also on Palestine. Even though, mind you, it has a very close relationship with Israel on technology cooperation, because as you know, Israel is very advanced in tech. But on Palestine, it still has a principled position because it always references the United Nations conventions.
But this is the principle. This principle that you talk about is, has highlighted China on so many different fora, because unfortunately there are so many other countries that lack in principle when it comes to action.
Actually, this is a very important aspect and perspective which you've given, and as we both are students of international relations, the past 300 years, which have seen Western dominance, have focused on the book called The Prince by Machiavelli, which is based on realpolitik. That it is power politics that takes precedence over others, over principles, and that is what ultimately prevails. But here comes China and it says that you do not have to have a zero-sum prism. It doesn't have to be zero-sum. International politics does not have to be zero-sum. It can be a win-win. And they came up with this Belt and Road Initiative, of which we are a beneficiary, and many other countries are as well. 165 countries are signatories to it. But the problem for many countries who are beneficiaries of the status quo, the ruling elite, as it were in the past, is that the Chinese model is working. It's not just rhetoric. It's not just theoretical fanfare, which sounds good and which sounds idealistic and based on idealism. It's actually working. And domestically it has delivered. So this visit of the Chinese foreign minister, which you earlier referring to, is critical. And I think that it's I must commend the government of Pakistan and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that the decisions of the region are being taken by the region. This is very important because a lot of the times the decisions of our region were taken outside our region, as it were. And now we are deciding, the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, including Afghanistan, are discussing, deliberating and charting a way forward, which is very, very important.
Now you talk of Afghanistan, Mustafa, and that's very important because the fact remains that a lot of issues, prevalent issues, pertain as far as Afghanistan is concerned, whether it be their denial of rights to education to the women, and them saying that it's an internal matter, but the West not agreeing with that, whether it be the humanitarian crisis that the United Nations calls its biggest humanitarian crisis in the world at this moment. Do you feel China and Pakistan can come to a solution with the presence of the Afghan foreign minister that is also expected?
Absolutely, why not? Look, Pakistan is in a very good position, in my opinion, to broker this, of course, in conjunction with China, because there is a history to it. Firstly, I think Pakistan's position on the current Afghan government, or call it the Afghan Taliban, has been consistent. We were pressurized in the past, Omar Saab, and a lot of countries and people have selective amnesia. If you remember, we were asked and arm twisted of disengaging with them when they were being cornered, when they were being criticized, and when they were being bombed. We were told that we are the saviors of the Haqqani network. We are secretly hosting them, this and that. At the end of the day, they are legitimate players in Afghanistan. The world has recognized them, or de facto recognized them. They are the current dispensation. And we have to work with them.
But they have to yet diplomatically accept them.
We have to diplomatically accept them, but the ground reality is that they are there. It's in Pakistan, when you talk about property, पहले होता है कि कब्जा है आपके पास या नहीं, do you have physical possession or not in law, and this is part of our British legal system, the British left, that do you have the physical possession. If you have the physical possession, then it goes on to the subsequent clauses.
Understood.
So this is very important, and so we stand vindicated vis-a-vis the Afghan Taliban, number one, and number two, we have hosted the largest number of Afghan refugees, or refugees, any kind of refugees for that matter, that any country has hosted. So, you know, no Scandinavian, European country, Western country, or any other Asian country has hosted the amount of refugees
And
that we have
successfully hosted that
successfully
for decades.
hosted them, and they are amongst us, and we are proud of that, and we should wear that on our chest and on our sleeve. If you go to Kabul restaurant, it has been an icon of Islamabad. Every Islamabadi knows about it, and it was run by Afghans. It was one of the finest restaurants and great food.
There are so many other outlets that have been opened by the Afghans across Pakistan, not just
Carpets.
Islamabad, of course, carpets.
And my point is that Pakistan has a history, there's an affinity, and there's a track record that Pakistan has proven. And I think that a time has come to actually have that détente which has come in the Middle East, in South Asia.
Mustafa, the time has come, but the time has also come for the Afghan interim government to realize that they need to stop all kinds of terrorist activities from entering the Pakistani land. We've seen the incursion of the TTP in the past as well. China has a lot of question marks concerning the ETIM as well.
Also the IMU.
That it has time and again asked the Afghan interim government, could this meeting, if it happens, when it happens at the end of the week or early next week, also pave the way for some kind of consensus or methodology in order to thwart these terror outfits?
I think these are red lines, and they have to. This is not a question of if, it's a question of when, because we cannot have any flexibility or any discussion whether China or Pakistan on what will be done. This is a red line for us, for our peace and stability inside Pakistan, and of course same goes for China. So they have to get their house in order. I believe that it is not malintent that is the reason for the terrorism, cross-border terrorism to happen. I think they are not a monolithic entity. They don't have control over the whole territorial sanctity of Afghanistan. You know, they are in different tribes, there are different warlords within them, and there's not a centralized organized system right now. They haven't really claimed complete monopoly over Afghanistan as of now. So things are, we are giving them more credit than they actually deserve when it comes to that. But I think that this can be a game changer for, apart from geopolitics, for the people of Afghanistan to make sure that aid the refugees, the people who have been ejected from their homes, the people who've lost everything because of this war and because of this the way the transition was done, they are they receive help through countries, through donors, through the United Nations, which as of now is not reaching them.
That is true. But another aspect as far as Afghanistan is concerned, Mustafa, remains also its stability. And we all know that any country becomes stable when its economy thrives. China-Pakistan economic corridor is something that China wants Pakistan's economy to thrive through. And it has also said time and again that Afghanistan could also be a very important corridor for this same project. Does Afghanistan realize the importance of stability in the country and economic prosperity through mega projects such as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor?
I think they realize it, because if you recall, when they came to power, Zabiullah Mujahid, who was the spokesperson of the government at that time, who was the representative of the Minister for Information, he talked about the Belt and Road Initiative and the Silk Road in one of his first pressers after the takeover took place. And he talked about how Afghanistan's economic future is linked with the Belt and Road Initiative. And the closest thing to the Belt and Road Initiative that Afghanistan has is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which, by the way, in the past has been discussed by the foreign ministers, of course, at that time the foreign minister of the previous government of Afghanistan and China, at that time was Mr. Wang Yi, and our government, that there should be a trilateral cooperation of CPEC, and there should be third party participation. It can be extended potentially to Afghanistan. So this has been on the table in the past. The prerequisite for that is security, and for Afghanistan and the government to make sure that they can deliver on the basic elements of economic development that are required, which includes security, that includes the basic parameter of certain projects and management of those projects by the host government. So I think that is a very, very natural extension that should be discussed.
Let's hope that especially Afghanistan realizes the importance of.
And of course, the Wakhan corridor there's been a lot of research, sorry to interrupt you, on the Wakhan corridor and the role that it can play in connectivity, in extending Pakistan and China's connectivity to Central Asia via Afghanistan.
Connectivity, Mustafa, is the key word in this day and age. Connectivity is the key word to link countries, to link corridors, and to stabilize and strengthen the economy of all the countries involved. Finally, Mustafa, whether it be Excellency Xi Jinping, who has entered his third term, whether it be Li Qiang, the new Chinese premier, all the doors or all the voices point towards friendship as far as the China-Pakistan equation is concerned. How do you foresee the next couple of years as far as this tangent of relationship between these two important pillars in the region is concerned?
Firstly, sir, I think we are very fortunate. We always are lucky, not by our own doing, but through some aligning of the stars, that China and Pakistan have had very close relations before China was this big player on the global stage. So we have that goodwill. Now, how can we leverage that goodwill for our own economic development? We have the biggest thing that is going for Pakistan, in my opinion, is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor when it comes to economic development. If we are able to make sure that we can preempt and avoid future security lapses, which unfortunately have happened more so in the past 2-3 years, but in the past, Chinese engineers, Chinese workers have been targeted and attacked. Right now, as we speak, there was a case of blasphemy in the Dasu power project against one Chinese person, and almost the whole village tried to attack him. So as long as we can give them this conducive atmosphere,
and that is
I think the sky is the limit.
I think a conducive atmosphere is very important. I think this meeting, whenever it happens, if it happens at the end of the week or early next week, is going to pave the way for much more development or much more angles to this relationship that Pakistan and China enjoy, with Afghanistan being a very important part of this trio, let's put it this way, in this region, that could pave the way for a stronger region. And I think this region deserves that strength and economic stability. Thank you very much, Mustafa Hyder, Executive Director, Pakistan-China Institute, to have joined us and to have come in the studios. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise,
let's come to our last two segments very, very quickly. We're short of time. The first is the Dutch police that have said yesterday that officers were surprised when they stopped one person and he was found to have a driving license in the name of Boris Johnson. A driving license that was valid until the year 3000, although it has been confirmed that Mr. Boris Johnson was nowhere in sight. But this driving license belonged to a Ukrainian and, of course, was a fake license. Nevertheless, the story raised a lot of eyebrows and a lot of smirks as well. Let's hope there are no future fake IDs of maybe the US president or others that others might be finding in other European countries. Finally, the Google artificial intelligence pioneer has said he is going to quit to speak freely about the dangers that artificial intelligence provides or could lead to as far as humanity or technology is concerned. At the moment, we are so happy and we're so relieved to find, software such as ChatGPT who can run our issues or our chores or our reports very quickly. But what could be the future as far as humanity or human, technology is concerned? Is this not going to, lead to a lot of question marks as to the future of humanity itself is concerned? And that is why Jeffrey Hinton wrote on Twitter that I left Google so that I could talk about the dangers of artificial intelligence without considering how this impacts Google. Also in an interview with the New York Times, he said he was worried about the capacity of artificial intelligence to create convincing false images and texts, creating a world where people will not be able to know what is true anymore. I think it's in a world where disinformation and misinformation leads to a lot of issues between communities and countries. It's very important to understand how we need to deal with artificial intelligence right now before it is too late. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories and segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.